Hi, Lucy.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm nervous. I am
Don't be
nervous.
nervous.
I'm nervous because it's such a beautiful story and I don't want to screw it up, you know? It's like,
I'm sure that our two listeners are not going to care if you screw up our story.
oh my gosh. Hi, our two friends.
Hi, Ginger.
Yeah, hi Ginger and Nikki. Um we no, it's just a really beautiful story and it's accompanied by like music and history and it's just gorgeous. And I don't want to screw it up. So,
You won't. I've got every faith in you. You're going to make such a
oh,
good
that's
job
kind
of
of
it.
you. I'll just sound convincing so no one has to fact check me afterwards and then you won't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
We
you
don't
were
need any fact checking. What are you drinking
and you
there?
were asking what I was drinking. So I love a pear martini.
Mm-hmm.
And but the way that I make it is like has kind of a like, gross syrup in it. So I found this I love vodka and Absolute makes a delicious like pear vodka. They also have a really yummy apple vodka. And oh, my mic sounds like it's like skipping. Um and Oh, it really does sound like it's skipping. I don't like that. Okay, we'll edit that part out. And when I went to the liquor store to buy whiskey for our podcast, I was
Mm-hmm.
also grabbing some more apple vodka, and they have an Absolute. The brand Absolute came out with these juices. They're like Absolute juice,
Ooh.
and this one is pear and elderberry.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I
Yeah,
love elderberry.
me too. And so I mix it with pear juice. So it's like it's called juice, but it's almost as strong as just straight up liquor. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
35% and regular vodka is 40%. So it's pretty close. So you really do need to cut it with
Yeah.
something or else you're just drinking straight, which it tastes delicious by itself. But anyways, it's just mixed with pear juice. It's like the best, loveliest
Mm.
summer cocktail drinks. Super
One of my
easy.
friends, her name is Lindsay. She actually listens to our podcast as
Hi,
well. So, hi, Lindsay.
Lindsay.
She told me of a cool recipe the other day
Oh
where
yeah.
you take Werther's Originals. Do you know what they
What?
are?
Yes, absolutely.
And you add them to your vodka and let it
Oh.
melt in the vodka. I'm sure it's Werther's Originals. Lindsay, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And
Oh.
it makes like a caramel
Oh my,
vodka,
that sounds amazing.
doesn't
Oh
it?
wow, that would be good with some like Kahlua in there too. A
Mm-hmm.
little Kahlua.
So I think you have to like let them steep
Yeah,
so they melt in the
right.
alcohol. And she showed me a photograph and it just looked like this
Oh, the
light brown dunky liquid.
I have to try that. That sounds
But it
so
sounded really
delicious.
good. I
Yeah.
know.
Well, this is a
We sound
delightful
like a
drink.
right couple of alkies.
We really do.
Alkies.
This is a mature podcast. We're allowed to drink. I
I
feel no
know.
shame in that. It's like the most beautiful day outside and I have my window open,
Really?
looking outside it's like a beautiful day to enjoy a cocktail while we talk
Well,
about all things fairy. Like it's like the perfect mix.
if
So
I could turn my screen right round right now, you'd see that it's not the most perfect day in Scotland.
no.
It's shitty ass weather.
Uh-oh.
It's cold and raining. And even though it's early evening, which it should still be light now that we're getting into May, it is dark out on not nighttime dark, but it's dark
Yeah.
outside because it's so crap. So could you
Mm,
please send some of your
yes.
summer weather over here because
Yes.
I am sick of it.
Oh, I do love a rainy day though when I can like crawl into my hoodie. That's like
Yeah,
my
but not every day,
no, not every day. True.
you know,
It's nice there
not
though
like
in the summer. I have nice days.
3 weeks in a row with no let up.
I
Yeah, we
know.
do.
Well, it was
Yeah.
dark and stormy and rainy here yesterday, so just to make you feel better and cold and gross.
I
So,
don't believe that for a
well, it's
second.
that's the truth. It was I know. Well, Max, my youngest, got teeth pulled yesterday. He had to get some molars pulled out,
Poor
and it was like
Max.
awful because it was like raining and dark. It was like ominous for this ominous walk. It was so funny. So, oh no, my computer is like dinging. I hope no one heard that.
Before we start our
Yeah.
amazing topic, which I'm not gonna mention because you're the one that's going to introduce that.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that Fairy Faith movie for a hot second?
Yeah. That was right.
That was amazing. So Karen messaged me yesterday and said, I just got told the recommendation of this amazing movie on Apple TV called The Fairy Faith. It said it was 2018, but you know what? It did look like it had been filmed in the 80s.
Everyone in that movie was from 1980s.
And because Brian Froud looked quite young as well, and I'm sure he's older than that, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so. It must have just been maybe collecting footage, and then he finally like
maybe
years later just put it all together.
Yeah. Or maybe it was added to like as a movie in 2018. But if you have access to Apple TV, you must go and watch it. It was so good. I enjoyed it so much.
I did too.
It's not free, you have to pay, but it was like £3, £2.50. It wasn't expensive.
It's on Venmo as well too. So if you don't have Apple TV, you can still watch it. Mm-hmm. You do. It is.
So it's this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. What were you gonna say?
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say if you go to John Walker Productions, .com, you can find it. You can find it there.
Oh, okay. That's much easier than finding it on Apple TV. Yeah. But it was this movie, I guess a documentary, maybe an hour and a half long or something. Mm-hmm. And it was made by an American guy, but it's all about his exploration into fairy belief in Scotland and Ireland. And he goes to various places and speaks to different people and hears first-hand fairy accounts or accounts from people whose grandparents spoke about fairy accounts, and it was so interesting.
And actually, he's a Canadian filmmaker.
Oh, Canadian,
yeah. Yes. And he makes documentaries. That's like his job. So he has. Is that who was stinging? Is that my side or is that your side? Did you hear that? Is that yours?
Is that me?
I don't know.
It could have been.
I'm trying to figure out where all the dings are coming from. I was like, is that me?
I think you're being targeted.
Oh no. So he evidently the John Walker was brought up in Canada listening to stories from his grandmother, who I believe was Scottish. Yeah. And so he was sort of investigating, looking more into those beliefs. And then he went back to Canada in the documentary and was saying, oh, I wonder if any of this kind of came over with our ancestors. And then sure enough, it is filled with firsthand like witnesses to fairy occurrences and people who themselves saw or hear or can communicate with in some way. It was fascinating. It was so good. Is absolutely no way any of those recordings were done anywhere near the 2000s because it was out of like a 1980s commercial. I mean, the hair, the glasses, the clothes, there's just no way. So I wonder though,
the film quality,
let's the whole thing,
even the film quality, but it was still so worth the £2.50 that it cost me to buy it, to watch it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So again, it's called The Fairy Faith. If you guys want to look it up, it's about an hour and 15 minutes. I wish it was longer. It cuts quite abruptly at the end, and I'm just like left wanting so much more. I'm like, wait, like we need to talk more about this.
There was a woman like almost in the middle of a sentence. I mean, she finished her sentence, but there was no ending conclusion. She just finished telling a little thing that she was saying, and then the credits came up. And I was like, oh, is that it? I want more.
I know. I was like, I want more. So much more. So I am going to be covering the fairy flag of Clan MacLeod, who have resided in the Isle of Skye for centuries, 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 centuries. And the fairy flag is actually, you can go to the castle today and see it. It's a relic, and it's a very coveted part of that clan's history and ancestry. And
I would love to go and see that.
I know. Well, I'm so disappointed because I did an Isle of Skye tour, which was 3 days with our whole family. We went just 2 years ago, and we didn't see the castle. We were not like brought there by our tour. And I'm super bummed. I know, I'm super bummed I didn't do a little homework before that. I don't think we could have like deviated from our tour group anyway. So like, against the rules or whatever, but at least we could have like said, hey, can you tell us about that? Or, you know, I at least could have learned more. They did a really good job. They did take us to the birthplace of all fairies in the Isle of Skye. Yes, and it was amazing. And they had great stories, and it's all this whole, it's like a giant fairy ring, and these like knolls that are like twisted out, coming out of the ground with these like naturally occurring like spiraling knolls. Oh my gosh, Max, my youngest, was like, he was a crazy person on Skye. Like, none of my kids are like athletic or sporty in any way. Like, they're 3 computer nerds in the making. So, but when I tell you, when we spent 3 days on Skye, my youngest it was like something in him was like unleashed, like just completely unleashed. Like he would run out of the bus and he would just like take off. Like, it was like the most bizarre thing that I've ever seen. There
Maybe
was like
he
something in the
lived there in a
wind.
previous life or something.
I mean, I do have to say, like, during that whole tour of Scotland, my kids like just looked at me and they were like, Mom, I totally get it. Like, I get it. And it was like, I was like, thank God. Because my worst nightmare was like lugging them across the ocean and having them be like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, Mom is legit
like when
crazy.
I tried to take my son to festivals.
Yes. And he's like,
he would stand there in the crowd of people. I know I said I would never speak about my son on this podcast ever again, but he doesn't listen, so it doesn't matter. No. He would stand there in the crowd of people with his noise-canceling headphones on so he couldn't hear the music. And he'd stand behind me and tug at my clothing and say, when can I go back to the camper van so that I can play my Nintendo DS?
Well, that's how my kids...
Have fun!
Yeah, like, go get it. And that's normally my kids in a nutshell. So I was shocked when I would see Max. Like, I have this video of him. So it was one of the days that we were on Skye. It was like raining and crazy windy, like 60-mile-an-hour winds. Like, our tour guide was wearing a kilt, and his kilt was like, whoa, like it was freezing and horrible, cloudy, crappy day. And I don't remember where we were. There was a lighthouse. We were at the top of a hill. It was like craggy cliffs and bluffs right on the ocean, right on the ocean's edge. And we got out of the bus, and there was only 12 of us. So it was a very small group. And you had to walk down, maybe 100 steps down the side of this steep cliff. And then there was a paved path that was probably a half a mile long that wended around one of these blustery, but flat. It kind of went down to the water's edge and then around the corner so that you couldn't even see the lighthouse. Like, they're like, if you take the path, we'll have an hour here. If you want to go see the lighthouse, follow the trail, go around the bend, and it's hiding behind this craggy bluff that we're on top of. And I was like, great. Maggie. So Max, my youngest, and Sean, my husband, are like, okay, let's go. My other two were like so done at this point. This was like day 3. They were like fried. They're like, we're good. It was pouring. So I'm at the top of this bluff, and my husband and Max, my youngest, so Max would have been about 9 or 10. And the 100 steps down, at least, it might have even been 200. I mean, we were at the very, very top. The paved trail that wended around was all the way at the bottom. And so I am at the top, and I'm like, this is crazy. I'm not going down there. Like, whatever. Like, my husband's with my littlest. They'll be fine. So I have my phone, my camera, and I'm I'm thinking that I'm videoing. They're so far away. They're tiny little specks, even though I'm zoomed all the way in. That's how far away they were. And I see these pairs of people walking. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's my husband. Where's Max? Like, oh, I thought he was with him. Where is he? So I follow my camera along the trail. I see groups of people. And then I just see this little tiny flying speck, like flying down this path, going like this kid was hauling ass down this trail. Like, and so you see my camera is like looking at the wrong set of people, you know, I'm like, where is he? And then all of a sudden I'm like, what's that? And I see him. I mean, he was like so taken with the wind and the rain and the sea and the landscape. He just flew. It was like the only thing I could think to describe it as. He was just flying, and he just got so like moved by the landscape, and he just like took off into the wind.
You need to move to sky.
I think so too. It was amazing. So we have that footage to this day, and we laugh. So we just call Max the flying speck, because that's what he looks like. This little fly. He's just flying, and everyone else is like walking. And Sean was nowhere near. He's like, couldn't even see him. He like disappeared behind this craggly bluff. And then of course they had to come all the way back up, which was like another, it was probably a mile all told. And then he had to go back around and then up all of those steps that he came down. He was just like exhilarated and smiling ear to ear. And I was like, I don't know what this place is doing to my son, but it was amazing. Like
I love that.
thought it was amazing. So yeah, they really, I'll not ever forget that. And so ever since then, he's been known as the flying speck. But that came from Sky. And that whole fairy place that we went to,
I've seen photos of that fairy place, and it's magical. To go there.
You really do.
I really do. It looks so amazing. Apparently it has come under a little bit of vandalism now and then.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
People leaving, I think it was people making little rock sculptures.
Could have been,
which isn't really vandalism.
I know.
As such, it's not like they're taking the spray paint out, but they're still messing with the landscape.
Right.
And so I
hope not.
remember seeing something about that a few years ago online, but
it could have been.
Yeah, I'm just going to interrupt 2 seconds before I forget and say I got my facts completely wrong.
Yeah, no, go.
That the TV program that is about the fairy flag is by Richard Dimbleby, not Weir's Way. So if you live in the UK and you want to check it out, it was made in the 1950s, and it was Richard Dimbleby, who's another famous like documentary person from that period.
Very cool. Okay.
And it's all about, and it's black and white, but it's all about the fairy flag in Sky. And it was a super interesting show.
It's a really magical place. And I'm just shocked that like there's so few people that live there, you know, like these places are just magical. And I'm like, isn't this not overrun with tourists? And it's very empty and magical, which thank goodness. I mean, I'm grateful that it isn't overrun with tourists and whatnot, but
maybe because it's full of midges in the summer. So
that's what everybody
most people
says.
Don't want to live there because there's too many midge.
I've never even met a midgie, so I feel like I'm due. I'm gonna get like attacked at some point because I've never seen a single one in all my trips.
Yeah, they're pretty awful.
I hear that
like relentless.
That's what I hear.
I haven't come across them in huge numbers before. Well, in fact, when I went to Sky, I was lucky there weren't any midgies at that time, even though it was summer. I think it just must not have been the right kind of weather. But I have heard stories of people camping and like coming out of their tents, and basically there's just swarms.
Yeah, the only time I saw them was at Men in Kilts, the last episode that I saw, which was
I still haven't seen it.
I know, but there's one where Sam is like trying to have a serious sit down activity, and he's just they're swarming all like they have to stop doing it because he's getting swarmed, and you can see them, and they're not affecting Graham in any way, shape, or form. It's hilarious, and he's just getting like
he's got the wrong kind of blood.
Yeah, just stop. Yeah. very funny.
I
But
have to say that I am pretty annoyed that Men in Kilts is not shown in the country that it was filmed
yeah,
in.
that's a little
It's
bullshit. I would be pissed
really
as well.
poor. And apparently it's coming on Stars Play this week or next week, but that's still not available to me because you have to pay for a subscription to it and I'm
Yeah.
refusing.
Yeah.
So
All
it's,
right.
yeah.
I know. That's
Anyway,
bullshit. I know. So I guess we
never
should
mind.
start. Should we
We
start?
should.
Oh my God. We're literally
Like
the
half an hour.
worst. We're
Are
the
you still
worst.
there, Ginger? Nikki?
Nikki, are you
Still there?
listening? Are you with us?
Lindsay?
Oh
Are
my
you still
God.
there?
Yeah. Our 3 fans. So I'm covering. So Isle of Skye. Well, at least hopefully maybe that has set the scene in your head. I mean, it is blustery. It is raw. It is craggy bluffs. It is sea crashing into rocks. It's the most beautiful setting ever. And up atop all of this is the clan castle base for Clan MacLeod, who have been inhabiting Skye for thousands of years. Maybe that's an exaggeration. Hundreds, at least 1,000 years, and a few hundred on
Yeah.
top of that. So there is in there, in to this day, in a glass casket, is what they deem the fairy flag, and it, without a doubt, is a very prized possession of Clan MacLeod that possesses proven magical protective powers over this clan.
Wow.
And I think everyone takes it very seriously, or it wouldn't be so well guarded and encased in the castle walls. So there are so supposedly it dates, they've had it examined over the years. Let my dog out. Okay, anyways, so the flag has been analyzed by scientists. I think they've had it like looked at a few times over the centuries, and scientists have dated it to between the 4th and 7th centuries.
Really? That old?
That old. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I had in my head that it might be from, the 1200s or something.
It's
no.
So
and
old.
That's amazing that it's still around after all that time.
I know. So they think it was, they say it's at least 400 years before the First Crusade. So like,
wow.
so old. So all, it's not, I mean, it's not looking so awesome. I mean, it because understandably so. And you can see the actual color picture of it in the Fairy Faith documentary. You can actually see it, and it doesn't look like much. It's like 18 inches at the largest part, and it's like torn and tattered, and I mean it's been around.
In fact, it doesn't really look, as far as I could see, it's like a beigey brown color.
Yes, they think
and
originally
it's all holy. It looks like, if you look
very
at
tattered,
one of like a map of lots of little islands or something, where there's all these little inlets and bits, it's almost like that.
It almost looks like someone took scissors and like cut pieces out of it. I mean, it's very torn and
one
tattered.
of those snowflake patterns that you make for Christmas, where you fold it up. You put your scissors so that you get the same thing. It's almost like that, but not quite so neat.
Right. And they unfurl it, and then somebody like ironed it, and then they put it in a glass plaque.
And you can't really see any paint or markings or anything on it. But did there used to be that on it? Or
so that's a great question. So it used to have crosses on it, and then it says it also used to be covered in elf spot. Okay, so
what the hell is elf spot?
So
that sounds like it could be spit from an elf.
So exactly. So this is what I'm starting to notice as we go from episode to episode, is when I start digging in and you start, reading the Wikipedia pages, going to blogs, watching the YouTube videos. And I find what's frustrating, but also really fun, is that you hear kind of the same facts repeated or whatever, because people are kind of all going back to the same sources for their information. people just kind of sweep certain things under the rug and they're not looking
Yeah.
any more into that. It drives me nuts. So that's the same thing. So, I keep hearing and watching and reading, oh, the crosses are no longer visible, but the elf spots remain. And I'm like, what the hell is an elf spot?
I know.
Like,
I want to know what
I'm
elf
like,
spot is.
my ears and eyes like perk up and I'm like, what is that? So of course and no one even like pauses to be like, and if you don't know what an elf spot is, it's blah, blah, blah. Everybody's just like, oh yeah, but you can see the elf spots. I'm like, guys, and I know
What
that
is
we
it?
don't know what the hell that is. Why are we not talking about that? So I tried to.
I've got image in my head. I've got like mildew sort of style.
So here I am, like tearing through all my Catherine Briggs books and like looking in the indexes and the dictionaries of all my fairy resources of now, which I've amassed like this great collection. And I'm Googling it, and I'm on Wikipedia. I'm like, that's not a highlighted link. Like, there's no link to that. What is that? I don't know. The closest I got.
People are like, that's too much work to actually figure that out. So we're just going to brush on over it.
That's exactly what it is. But seriously, if someone can tell me, please, what an elf spot is, please let me know. Because when you Google
so you can even find out?
Nothing. It comes up nowhere. So why is
my goodness.
Why is someone else questioning that? Or why is, obviously no one knows what that is. But what is it?
At some point, the original source that all the Wikipedia pages and blog posts and YouTube videos and other podcast episodes, the original source has mentioned something called elf spot.
Yes,
but
clearly no one knows
that must come from somewhere.
What is that? So I did a deep dive last night and I came up absolutely nothing except elf Cosmetics makes a zit cream. So if you look up elf spot, it literally is all these like acne medications by elf cosmetic. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not what's on the fairy flag. Thanks so much.
It could be the modern version.
Do you think there's elf sits on the fairy flag? Is that what you're saying?
Elf sits. Do you know what? I'm almost inclined to guess that it's nothing to do with zits.
Really? No.
But to me, it sounds like it would be more like spit.
Ew.
Like elves have gone tap, 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 like spit. What? That was me trying to make the sound of someone spitting without actually on spit. So
you
it sounded really awful.
Hang on. So you think in the 4th century, an elf spit on the flag, and now you can still see that to this day?
Maybe. I don't know.
Do I have to fire you?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I know. Well, and it's better than anyone else's who isn't guessing at all because there's literally no information about what that is. So please, anybody knows,
maybe that was a way of that elf passing some magic onto it.
That sounds cool. Maybe I have no idea.
Spit it out.
Oh, and actually, maybe, what I found out yesterday through that documentary was that fairies' blood is white. Did you pick up on that?
I didn't know that either.
I was like,
so
what?
Cool.
That's so cool. So maybe the elf spit now, or spot spit is also very heavily dyed. And that's why, that's what we're going to say.
That I'm going to spend the whole evening trying to uncover.
I tried. I hope somebody can uncover what that is.
I want to know. Get a little bit like a dog with a bone when I go on a super sleuthing.
Well, that's what I was doing last night. And sometimes people have it in quotes. I'm like, what are you quoting? What are you air quoting around elf spot? I don't know what that is.
Are they air quoting because they don't know either? So they're like, somebody made this up at some point.
Right?
Nobody bothered to explain it. So I'm going to quote it because I don't think it's real.
Right.
There must be. I wonder if you could email Dunvegan Castle. I'm not recommending that all our millions of listeners do this.
Dunvegalcastle@gmail.com.
Email them and ask them.
Do you think they have like
Excuse
a general
me,
email?
See your fairy flag that you've got there. I've heard on good authority that it's spotted with elves. Alvin, it's elf spotted.
Right?
Could
What
you
is
please
that?
explain and take a photograph of the elf spot and explain exactly what elf spot is?
Please.
Yours sincerely, a disgruntled American.
What? Why you pin that on me?
Because it's your topic.
Fine. I am actually disgruntled about it because I'm dying to know what it is. But anyways, there's stuff on it and it's evidently elf spot. So, and all you can really see is you can see some stitching. They do think that it was originally, it is supposed to be silk from Syria or Rhodes. I don't even know where Rhodes is. I didn't even know Rhodes was a thing.
Greece.
That's how dumb I am. Is it?
Rhodes.
Yeah. Why don't I know? Why didn't I know that?
That's in Greece.
I should never say things like that on a podcast, but I did not know that.
That's okay. I got the name of a TV program that I watched not that long ago.
Yesterday. Wrong. That's true. You're pretty dumb. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love you, Lucy.
Too.
Just kidding. So it's really old. Let's just put it that way. It's genuinely so old. So there's actually a large number of stories about the possible originations of this, but I think there's two main ones if you're gonna save time too late and kind of narrow it down. There's probably the two most popular theories. One is the less sexy version, which is
I want to hear the sexy version.
Well, I want to save that one for last because it's just so good and it's not tremendously long, so it's not going to like drag this out for hours and hours. Too late. So the first one is that the clan MacLeod can trace their ancestors back to the Norwegians, which is probably common for most of the clans that settled in the Northern Isles. Were all from the Scandinavian countries, but they know, or at least they think they know, that their ancestors came from there's a king of Norway who ruled from 1046 to 1066, and he's known as Harald Sigurdsson, or also known as Harald Hardrada. So he was the king of Norway, but before he became the king, he served as the captain of some guard in the court of the Byzantine emperor at Constantinople. So super long time ago. So 1200 years ago. And one of the treasures he was said to have brought back from Norway was the fairy flag, which was also known as the Land Ravager. This is
the flag was known as the Land Ravager.
Yes, and this is why I don't think that this is the true origination story, because it said that go ahead.
Also, they dated it to 400 to 600.
Well, they do say like they think it was a relic already by the time they got it. It was already a relic, but they were saying that it says the king believed that the flag made him undefeatable in battle. And so when Harold embarked on his campaign to conquer England, he took the flag along with him. But this is that piece of evidence is why I don't think that this is the true origination story, because the story goes that the Norse army was ambushed by the English. Harold didn't have the opportunity to unfurl this magical flag, and he was actually defeated, and he died as the result of an arrow that pierced his throat.
Ugh.
So really, it didn't protect him at all. He died.
It didn't do its job.
I don't think it was. That was the origination story.
So would they have this flag originally have been on a pole or something carried by the people or by the king as they go into, it was that kind of a flag rather than?
I don't think so. And there are a few stories about how he obtained the flag, and there's different variations. It's a lot of stories. So I'm going to just kind of like trim the fat and go towards a direct generalization, because again, the most interesting story is the one that I have yet to tell. So I'm not going to get too caught up on the details of this guy, but let's just say he obtained it. He thought it was magical, gave him protection. And then of course he ended up getting killed. Now he says it didn't protect him because you have to unfurl it. So I think he was holding on to it like a treasure. And I think the idea is that, well, had he been able to like whip it out in the danger zone, he would have been saved. But because he didn't have this, then he was killed.
That sounds like a big fat excuse to me.
I think so too, which is why I don't think that this is the origination story,
It's
because
like,
it really
sorry,
was.
I didn't have my flag out the right way.
I
That's
just didn't unfurl it. Exactly. That's what I think as well. But it does, it's kind of cool, this variation, even still though, because it is like a nod to where the clan kind of originated from and their ancestors and how it could have been passed down. So they say that.
So were their ancestors, their ancestors were
they traced them to this guy. Yes. Okay. So, and then it says like one of the king who died, they said they traced it and said that the flag was handed off to one of his soldiers who did survive the battle. And his name was Godred. I mean, they have a lot of actual details. Like his name was Godred Croven. He managed to escape. He rescued the flag and they brought it back to the kingdom of man and the Isles, where he found refuge with the new king, who was also his kinsman. And then Godfred established himself as the king of man, and the MacLeods are said to be descendant from him. I mean, they have a lot of information about this time period, names, dates. I mean, you know what I mean? So that is a cool story. So I do want to talk about it because it's kind of neat.
It's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, it's neat in of itself. I don't think that's where it came from. I think the second story is the real story, but it's neat in and of itself. So even if that is not true, I think it's a pretty cool historical relevancy.
To me, that one sounds like it's almost like a backhanded excuse as to why he was rubbish in battle and lost.
Right.
I got shot through the neck because the only reason I lost and I got shot through the neck was because I forgot to unfurl my flag.
Yeah, my bad.
Not because I was a bad warrior, but because I didn't unfurl the flag.
Exactly. So that's story number 1, which I don't think is true. So
in our extensive,
well, I'm an expert of elves, obviously,
and our time travel machine.
Yes.
And our really scientific Excel spreadsheets.
And you know on my notes, so this is what I wrote up here when it says Harold did not have the opportunity to unfurl his magical flag. I just wrote lame. Like you said, it's like a lame excuse. Lame. That's lame. Super lame. So
he's like lying there dying on the battlefield with the arrow in his neck, and he's like, "It's all the flag's fault."
Yeah.
It's not me.
Yeah, I'm a super strong warrior. I would have made it.
The flag.
Yeah. Lame, Harold. You're lame. You're not fooling anyone.
Yeah, you're not worthy to become a.
I know.
Clansman of Scotland.
So this story I love so much.
Is this a sexy one?
It's like the most romantic story ever. So the other, and this is the one I really think that the MacLeods actually, I think that they're holding on to this one as well, because there isn't like this lame ancestor who screwed things up, and like that does not like loses the whole magic for it. And this one, it kind of explains more and like talks more about the protective properties, and I'll talk more about that after the story. But basically, there was the 4th chief of Clan MacLeod. His name was Ian. I don't know how to say this. If it's Ciar, it's C-I-A-R. C-I-A-R. Very short and sweet. Anyways, he was supposed to be very, very handsome, and a lot of maidens in the countryside really loved him. Like he was pretty hot, so they had the hots for him. He wasn't interested in any of them. Rather, he actually met and fell in love with a fairy princess.
Oh,
Like,
I love that.
come on.
I've got an image in my head already.
I know. So they
Yeah.
fell in love instantly, and the princess requested from her fairy king, requested permission to marry this chief, who was the fourth chief of the clan. So this goes back to, they're only on chief 4. I think they're on chief like 28 or something now. So it was like, very, it
But
was
still,
very long time ago.
if the I know I'm being really picky here, but if the clan MacLeod didn't really start up being a clan until after this Viking guy in the 1000s,
right,
or
1200
whatever,
years ago.
but the flag is older than that.
Well, the flag is, but hang on. Yeah.
Okay.
There is a little
Am I
magical
jumping the gun?
in this story. Yeah. And I don't think
the
dates are the most important part of this. Yeah, I think you should.
I'm suspending disbelief for the sexy magical story.
Yes,
Go on.
definitely. So the king of the fairies actually forbade the marriage because his reasoning was, you're a fairy, you live hundreds of years. I don't think fairies are immortal, but they don't have like a finite lifespan like humans do. And he said, because you love each other so much, this is only going to end in despair. So I don't think you should be married. However, he said, because the fairy princess was so distressed and she wanted to marry him so much. And actually, by the way, one of my sources said that little fun side fact is that it was not uncommon for chieftains to marry, not even specifically chieftains, but it was not uncommon for men to marry fairy princesses during this time period. What?
Wow.
I have so many questions about that, and I think that's amazing. So let's look into that later on.
That a lot of Scots are descended from fairies?
I think it is.
Are we part fairy?
I think it's
I'm
true.
I'm going to take that.
I'm going to say yes as well. There's all sorts of little magical nuggets in this story. So he said no to the marriage, but he agreed to a period of hand fasting, which, and that part varies depending on the source that you read, but I do think it might be true because either story variation that you read, even if they don't. So hand fasting is when you basically live together before you get married, and it's always for a set term of 1 year and a day. So even the stories that don't include the word hand fasting, if the time period is always a year and a day. So I feel like that is basically hand fasting. It's the same exact time period. So I think that's kind of neat because that is a traditional,
like a way of trying
agreement.
Each other out before you decide whether you're actually going to actually tie the knot.
Exactly.
Or not.
So that's like Robert hand fasts Brienne, right? In Outlander. They have their little hand fasty little ceremony in their little quiet little cabin. Anywho, so they were excited about that. They said fine. And then, so the king demanded that by the end of that, the princess needs to come home and can take nothing human with her. She needs to return because it's going to be too much. So have your year and a day. That's fine. So she ended up becoming pregnant with the chieftain's son and gives birth right before it's time for her to return to the fairyland. And they're both so upset because they love each other very, very deeply. And she said, well, they're supposed to have parted at a very famous fairy bridge, which is also a very famous spot on the Isle of Skye. That's 3 miles from the castle. So it's very much could have actually occurred this way. Obviously, it's totally true.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Totally true.
So, and you can go and photograph it and it's, it's a thing. So at the fairy bridge, they part and she said, I will only leave our son with you behind if you promise me one thing. And of course, the chieftain is like, anything, I love you, I love our son, anything you need. She said, you must never leave our child unattended and you must never let our child cry. Which,
oh my goodness, that's quite a big ask.
Which I think it's kind of a tall order, just saying. Yeah. I had 3 kids. We didn't go 1 second without them crying, but whatever.
I know.
So the young chief was heartbroken and he was devastated when his fairy princess left, and he couldn't get over it, actually. So his clansmen decided to throw him a big party. It was his birthday, and they were like, look, you've been so sad and so distraught since your fairy wife lost. We are going to throw you a huge party to cheer you up and to get you out of your funk, which I just think is so nice. And
that is so nice.
That's so true. I'm sure that happened. So
that's what we all need right now, is a huge party.
Yeah.
To get over our funk.
I think so.
Of
COVID.
The last year.
Blah, blah, blah. I know.
Big old party.
I know. But what happened was, the party celebrations were so raucous and they were so loud and exciting that the nursemaid left the baby to go take a peek because she could not resist. The baby was sleeping peacefully. She's like, I'm sure I have just a minute. I'm just gonna go take a quick peek and see what's happening down at the festivities. So she left him alone.
I'm just gonna interrupt and say, typical though, that he got told he was not allowed to leave that child alone.
Right. Well, that was
for 1 second.
Yes.
But he palms that job on to somebody else while he goes off partying.
Yes.
And he's got a nursemaid to keep an eye, which is, if that was the mother would have been,
I know,
sitting watching the child,
but
missing out on the party.
In his defense, she didn't say that he had to be the one that was, keeping the child company at all. And the party was for him, so it would have been pretty rude had he not showed up for it.
He could have taken the baby along and had him in the corner.
But it's okay. The baby ended up being fine, so don't worry. So
okay, I am worrying about babies.
I know. So the baby is left alone, and its blankets fell off, and he got cold, so he started crying. And there was nobody there. So the fairy princess heard her baby crying and was so upset and wanted to make sure that he was okay. So she actually appeared to comfort. She came right back and was like, no, and came right back and started comforting her child and wrapped the child in this fairy blanket and a shawl. That's the fairy blanket. I know. And then she actually started singing this lullaby to her baby to make him feel better. Are you gonna sing
it for me?
Yes, it's No, I'm just kidding. Nope, not gonna sing. I would though if I knew it.
Come on. That would have been so good.
So when the maid returned, she could actually hear the lullaby, but she could not see where it was coming from, and she couldn't see the sound that it was making. So she took the baby immediately with the shawl, which is now the fairy flag, and because she didn't recognize where it had come from, and carried it to the chief and told the chief what happened, so that immediately, I mean, she felt bad. These were good people, they all knew. But just a quick side note about the lullaby, I just think it's so neat. It was what I felt stressed about not having enough time to dig into this lullaby itself, because there is a little magic. This lullaby is still sung today.
Oh, really?
It's like a famous lullaby. It's called the Cradle Spell of Dunvegan, and it's
oh my goodness,
beautiful. And I just saw the YouTube link. There's this was from a number of articles, but on our blog at oneknot.com, I'm gonna put the link to the lullaby, because it's gorgeous. There's a version, it's like half Gaelic and half English. It's so beautiful. And so it's actually still sung to this day. So when the child grew old enough to talk, he actually recounted supposedly this whole tale to his father, and said, which, he might have been a little young to remember. But he's half fairy, so maybe not. I
was gonna say, he is half fairy, so he's got magical powers that we don't have. Well, you don't have because you're not Scottish, but
that's
maybe I
not
do.
Very nice. Yeah, thanks for rubbing it in. I'm hoping some of the magic will rub off onto me over all these episodes. So when he was old enough to talk, he did share the story about his mother coming back and giving him the blanket, singing him this lullaby, and also explaining something very important about the flag, saying that they could they could wave the flag 3 times, and that the fairy legions would come immediately to their aid, the clan's aid, if they ever needed protection. However, if it was waved on the 4th time, then the legions of the fairy would come and they would immediately take it away, and that they only had 3 choices. So they say that the chief instantly realized that it was his son, was telling the truth. He's like, we're not messing around. So they immediately took it and they kept it safe, and they made a casket for it and they put it in, and we're like, nobody is touching this flag. Until
hang on, let's go back to Elf Spot for a second.
Yes.
Because if it was used as a baby blanket, maybe that's where the elf spot came from, because you know what babies can be like, spitting up their milk and all that kinds of stuff. And maybe the baby was like part elf, or the fairy part of the baby. Maybe that's where the elf spot came from.
Maybe it is. We'll just go with that.
Well, let's go with that one.
Yeah, let's go with that. But not in a gross way.
Can we change the Wikipedia?
Yeah, we can. We have the authority to do that.
And explain. We're just going to explain to everybody what the hell elf
We're just going to go ahead and say that that's baby spit up. Awesome.
Baby spit up.
Because that's very romantic. So this is where it gets super cool. So, and I also need to interject.
What do you mean this is where it gets super cool?
We're
it's
not
super cool already.
No, this is actually where it gets even cooler. And I do have to say that even though there are a few other variations of a mix of the Crusades, a mix of the fairy, some say it was like they were together for 20 years before it was passed on. Regardless of which origin story you are reading, all of them do say that what seems to be the universal fact in all this was that, in fact, the flag could be used 3 times to save the clan. Okay, so this is where it gets cool, is that it has actually been used twice.
Oh, really?
It's been used twice, and successfully. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
How?
So the first time that it was used was when the MacDonalds were attacking. So the MacDonalds is another sky. Although I think the MacDonalds were also in the Highlands. So they were attacking the MacLeods. Yeah. They had actually like ushered all the MacLeods. They had trapped them in a building and like burned it down. And the MacLeods were terrified. So there was just a few like remaining on the beach, and they were like, oh my God, our clan is being decimated right now. Somebody grab the flag. Like we are desperate. There's 8 of us on the beach or however many, and we need help. So that was the first time they used it. They unfurled it, and lo and behold, the band, and I have some questions about this, but whatever. This has factually happened, so I'm not gonna question the outcome. The band seemed to expand by 10 times. Their enemies were terrified, turned and ran, never to return. So the question I have is, who were these clan members that then appeared on the beach out of nowhere 10 times? A remaining number of clansmen then came and were able to chase.
Was it like
attackers.
A magical optical illusion?
Right? I don't know.
A little bit like when they film movies where they need a huge army, like I'm thinking Game of Thrones. Like they've got a huge army, but in reality they've filmed a little square of 20 people. And then they've CGI'd and made it look like it's 10,000.
Right.
Was it the same kind of thing where the flag did a little bit of medieval Middle Ages CGI?
I think maybe that is what happened. Well, this also begs the question. I'm sorry, I need to do a little aside here, and don't, if you're a McDonald, don't hate me. However, how come when the Campbells murdered the McDonalds at the massacre of Glencoe, they're like, "Oh, we're never gonna forget this. Everyone has to hate the Campbells now, like poor us." But when the McDonalds were killing off the MacLeods and burning them to the ground within a church, the MacLeods aren't like, "Oh, the McDonald's murdered us all forever." What's up with that double standard? That's what I want to know.
No idea.
What?
I
That
just
seems
know
very unfair.
that for a country that I'm pretty proud of, and that I would say I don't want to hear any bad words spoken against Scotland, or the clans were pretty
We're nasty
to each
one
other.
another. Right. I just
thought
quite
that childish. That whole thing of like,
right?
I'm going to prey on you because someone in your family stole one of my sheep, so I'm going to come and get everyone back. It was a little bit.
And if you go to Glencoe today and walk in a pub, it will say no Campbell's allowed. So I want to know if yes. So I want to know if you're in Skye, do they have plaques that say no McDonald's allowed? Because they should. I'm just saying.
They should, shouldn't they?
They should.
Yeah, they should. I
think
Stephen. The McDonald's did get pretty far, and they're quite a big clan. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of McDonald's.
Yeah.
Part of my family is Donald, which I'm guessing is part of the McDonald's.
Yep. So anyways, I just had to know inequality.
What you say, because I might.
I know. I'm going to wreak some
trap
serious.
You in a barn and set fire to you.
Oh, wait, what? To Mimi?
Or maybe just Sean. He's the true Campbell.
Yes, he is. That's just my married name. I love it when people are like, you do realize that your last name is Campbell. And I'm like, you do realize that I am married to someone with the last name Campbell. So funny. I'm like, no, I'm literally like 0% Scottish. So anyway.
So when you went to Glencoe, you were like, my second name is not really Campbell.
I was like, I'm Karen Duval.
So I'm allowed in this bar.
Yes. I was like, I know. We were like scared when we went there. Yes, I was. Did change my name. So that was the first time. And then it was used.
That's amazing.
I know, right? So then it was used a second time. And the second time, the first one was in the 1400s. The second one was in the 1500s. I think it was about 100 years later. There was a really, really, really bad plague that hit the Isle of Skye. And everybody was starving to death. And the cattle and the sheep were all dead and they were dying. And they were just desperate. And so one of the MacLeods, and there is a whole thing about who is allowed to unfurl it during these times too. That's like a whole nother thing. Like it has to be like the eldest born of the, I mean, they like take this very seriously. Like it can't just be like anybody like, Jimmy, go grab the flag, like wave it. Like it's like this whole like.
Why did you say that in a sort of a New York accent?
Oh my God. So like, you know, it has to be like, it's a serious deal. Like they have it like at the ready, like in case. So they actually did wave it. And then
you can't unfurl it now though. If they unfurl it now, it'll just flutter off into the wind and
it'll just
a
like
million tiny pieces.
Because it's so old. So, but when they did that, they said a fairy host rode out and touched the animals with their sword, and the animals all recovered magically and saved the clan. Like, so cool. I know.
Oh my God, I love that.
I know. So cool. So that's the second time. Now, everybody's a little freaked out because they've already, you know, it's like 3 strikes and you're out. So everybody's kind of afraid to use it the third time.
A little bit like Aladdin's lamp, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So, however, this is super cool because it takes us up to the 20th century now. So this is documented proof, you know, photograph proof, like this is real. So during World War II, when the threat of invasion was so high to Britain, the clan chief of the MacLeod actually offered to bring the fairy flag to the cliffs of Dover.
Oh, I love that.
I know, like it was real. And not only that, I know. And so this is super cool, but also during World War II.
So that would use up their third and final time, and they wouldn't ever be able to use it ever again.
But they were
so
like prepared.
That was so important.
Right. And they were prepared to like offer that to the United Kingdom for its protection, and actually like made that offer to like Winston Churchill to be like, we will do this.
I wonder what Winston Churchill said.
I know. We don't know. Isn't that so cool? But it's even cooler than that, which is that they actually, so many MacLeods believe so deeply in this flag that they actually, the MacLeod servicemen, they carried photographs of the flags and they carried them with them at all times during World War II, which is like,
oh my goodness,
amazing. And then it also goes on to say that the MacLeod airmen who were defending their king and country during the Battle of Britain, and that not a single one of them who carried the actual picture of the flag were killed.
That is magical.
Isn't that the coolest thing ever?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just think they so deeply believe in it. I mean, that's, you know, that's not ancient history.
I know.
I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. And there is a little extra remnant magic related to the lullaby too. That was sung. This is a little bit of a side story. They said there was a period of about 200 years. Well, first they said that the song was so remarkable that it imprinted itself onto that nursemaid who returned to go check up on the crying baby, and that lullaby made such an impression on her that it was like imprinted into her memory, and she never forgot it. So she started singing that to the baby afterwards. And then it said there was a period of 200 years that I think that they said they would not. No nursemaids were employed by the family who could not sing the song. It was like a requirement that they learn to sing the song. And they also
had little auditions on their...
Can you change a diaper? Yeah. Can you be a wet nurse? Can you sing the song? And they said that over time, it was believed that any infant of the chiefly family to whom the lullaby was sung would be protected by the power of the families. So they wanted to just make sure that whoever was coming to take care of their wee bairns would be able to sing the song, to get them just to make sure that they had the protection of the fairies. I just think that that's amazing.
What a magical story.
Yep.
I'm with you. I think that second one is way more likely to be the real one, rather than some guy getting his neck shot with an arrow. And
I know there's no magic in that one.
I know.
So I just think that that's the coolest thing ever.
I love it.
No. And I love that it made its way to like modern day history as well. I just think it's
in Dunvegan Castle now.
Mm-hmm. It is to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't look...
Is Dunvegan Castle open to the public?
I think that it is. Yeah, I think you can go and see it. Just like that was my impression from... Let me read this. I think that you can. I think that it is. I don't know about during COVID times.
No.
But in a lot of...
I would love to go and see the fairy flag. I always imagine with the really old things like that, what they would have looked like in their heyday, when it was an actual piece of fabric that had markings on it or whatever, or woven designs. It's really hard to imagine looking at it now when it's just all these tiny little bits of falling apart.
It really is. And that song is so beautiful, that lullaby. I mean, I just think there's so much magic within that in and of itself.
That
So
program that both of us watched last night,
mm-hmm.
they were speaking, quite a few people speaking in that about
About the
music from the
yes. Oh
fairies.
yeah, absolutely.
And
And there's
hearing
and
special music that didn't
yes.
sound like human music. It was like there was a different sound to it. And without giving away too many spoilers in case anyone goes to watch it, there was that one bit, Karen,
Yeah.
with the guy that he was sitting on the side of the hill and he was talking about his experience coming across the fairies.
Yes.
And do you know the one I mean?
Yeah.
And he was speaking about hearing this like strange,
Yeah.
beautiful music. So
I've heard that in quite a lot of the podcasts that I've listened to where they have like first person accounts of people that have come across, have fairy experiences, or a lot of them are hearing them. And if they don't see them, that they hear them. And their fairies are so associated with music.
yeah.
Lots and lots and lots of the time. I love the last story in that documentary when they have the mom who was, when her kids were little, she had her 3 kids and they were at the beach and she heard the eerie fairy music and she was like,
Yeah.
everybody in the car, everybody get in the car. Like her like reenactment of herself as a young mom with her young kids was hilarious. And then her daughter, who's now grown, saying like, oh, but I was naughty and I took a look and I saw them all, dancing in a circle. And I was like, oh my God, such a cool story. And of course,
You don't really want to venture into the fairy realm. It's a little bit dangerous.
They did a good job in explaining the dangers of the fairies and saying like, no, you don't mess with them. And that was when we did our Isla Sky tour, when he was telling about like, this is the birthplace of the fairies. Our tour guide, this was the same guy, Ross, who was a McDonald, who was like, Sean, it's cool, mate. Like, we forgive you. Like, it's cool. Like, it was so funny. That whole tour was hilarious. And he was telling stories about saying like, okay, when you go, I am dead serious. Like, do not whistle. Do not put your hands in your pockets. Do not, like, they had this like list of rules. And he was like, do not take anything from the site. Now, I'm sure they do say that because they don't want tourists like wrecking it. So I super respect that. But he was like, I'm not messing around. He said, we have people that have written in saying, and he had like firsthand accounts. I don't think he was making this stuff up. I really don't. Because then I think that he was telling the truth. He was saying like, he said he had accounts of people saying like, this is not to be messed with. Like, and a lot of people say like, don't piss off the fairies, like for real. Like they're not messing around. So we had people who had like taken a stone or taken something from there who I forget, Robbie's is the name of the tour company. They would get packages in the mail back from things that people had taken, returning them saying, ever since I brought this home, my brother died, my uncle died, my dog died. Like it was like this instant chain of bad effects. And they were like, you know what? I don't want this in my life anymore. This all started when I came home from visiting the fairy ring and I took this and I'm giving it back. And I was like, oh my God. And they had like, it wasn't just one story. He had like story after story after story.
Yeah.
And he was like, seriously, don't mess with them.
I've also heard that about places in the US, I think it is, where there are certain sites or certain sacred places where you're not supposed to take a rock from because something bad will happen. And the same thing happening, people taking souvenirs and then being hit with misfortune after misfortune after misfortune. Yeah,
I would love to know where those places were.
I know. I'm not gonna pretend that I know,
but I definitely,
because I can't remember.
I know,
and I'm not even gonna pretend that I can remember where I saw that. And actually, it could have been a fiction film, completely made up. But I do remember. I do remember reading or seeing something about that of other places other than Scotland or Ireland. So just, the same kind of thing does happen throughout the world where
I just thought it
Don't
was,
want to mess.
yeah, don't mess with it. And I just remember
Yeah.
being like, don't put your hand in your pocket. Like I was like so paranoid. It really got under my skin. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stand here. And Max was a little crazy person at that stop too. Like he like ran up the side of one of these like knobby knolls, and Sean was like, what are you doing? Like get him down from there. They're like these, but you can see photos of that exact spot. If you Google Isle of Skye, like see the
It's
fairies,
amazing.
and it looks exactly like that in person, but it's like kind of like how did these it is really is magical, that whole area is, and I just love it. I mean, there's nobody lives there. It's just totally untouched by
how close to Dunvegan Castle is that site? Are they two quite close to each other?
I actually don't know. I remember we saw Dunvegan. I think I remember saying like, if everybody looks to the right, you can like see Dunvegan Castle through the mist of the trees. And that was as close as we got. And now I'm so mad. I'm like, why did we not go there? Like, oh,
yeah.
But you see so many castles too that you're like, oh, okay, that's probably just a blah, 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 blah. And then I was after having stayed at Ward Hill Castle as well, when you realize, well, some of these are just residences and some of them are ruins and some of them. So when we glossed by it, I just presumed it was kind of one of the two. Like either people are living there or
after a whole week of our own castle, you were totally
you get desensitized a little, which is so
another
sad.
castle.
Yeah. Just another
castle in Scotland. Another one of the hundreds I've seen already.
I really want to go back though, and I definitely want to see the fairy flag. I think it's a little.
I really want to go.
I do think it's probably a little like the Mona Lisa, where you like your expectations are super high, and then you see it, and you're like, "Oh, that's it." Like, I think it's exactly like that, but. I mean, it's still magical. Don't take away its actual power. It's a lot more magical than the Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa is just sitting there. She doesn't have any magic.
I think probably the likelihood is that the one that is on the gallery wall is not even the real one.
You think so?
Yeah, that's what I heard from one of my lecturers years and years ago.
Because somebody might want to
steal
it.
There was a break-in in the Louvre, and didn't the Mona Lisa get stolen? And I think along with some other paintings, and I think that when something is that precious,
true,
unfortunately my hunch is that it is locked away in a vault somewhere where nobody can ever get to it, and there is not like a poster copy, but like a copy of a fake, a very well done fake.
That makes so much sense.
Don't quote me on this. Don't come for me if you are a curator in the Louvre and I'm speaking shit. But then it just doesn't. It's not in danger of being.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the curator of the Louvre is never going to listen to our podcast. So you're good.
You never know. They may be really into fairies and Scottish folklore.
They'll be our fourth fan. I do have to say though, that does remind me of the seat. Oh, I don't remember that. It's like the Sorcerer's Stone, the seat of the something. There's a Scottish
King Arthur's seat.
No, but it's. I want to do an episode on that. I can't remember the name of it, which is probably fine because it'll help keep it a secret until I do it. But there is
the one in Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm. That one has a
Arthur's seat.
No, because that's the name of like the mountain. This is like an actual stone that was like
the Stone of Destiny.
Maybe, yes, I think so. That one has
that was stolen.
Cool. Yes, that one. The story of that is amazing.
I won't give away too much.
Don't give away. It's
right
so good. It's so good.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
That'll be a great episode.
Is so interesting.
I know. When I read it, I read the whole thing in that little tiny peculiar history of Scotland book, and they do the best like succinct wrap up of what happened with that stone, which I was like, what? No way. So interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of future episodes, do you know what you're going to do for our next episode?
I do.
You do?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you, or do you want me to keep it a surprise?
I kind of want you to whisper it to me so I have something to look forward to.
What? Whisper to you or to the whole world?
Maybe to the whole world. So we all have something to look forward to. It like makes my whole week when I know what's coming.
if I whisper it to the whole world and
Yeah.
they go and research and know more than me when I
No.
speak about it next week, then I'll look like an idiot.
Can you do me like a rhymes with? Do you ever play that game? Like if you're doing witch, I could be like rhymes with bitch. And then I'd be like,
Okay,
oh,
I'm going to say we're
do it.
on a car journey and I spy with my little
Oh,
eye
yes.
something beginning with L N M.
LNM. Oh, so it's 3 words?
Yeah.
LMN. Oh my God.
LNM.
LNM? I wrote down LMR. Where'd the R come from?
I don't know.
I could never get that in a million years. That's not very satisfying.
Oh, was it not?
No.
Okay.
Come on. Give me a little nugget.
This.
Is it Fae based?
No, it's a cryptid.
It's cryptid?
It's a cryptid.
It's a
Scottish
cryptid. I don't know what that means. What does that even mean?
Do you not know what a cryptid is? No. A cryptid is a creature that is possibly mythical, but possibly real and hasn't been proven.
Oh, cool.
So American versions of cryptids are like Bigfoot or
cool.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
And in Scotland, we have our very own cryptid.
Oh, I know what you're going to do. Oh, I'm so excited. I just figured it out.
Have you?
Yes.
Are you going to say or are we going to leave it hanging like
I'm going to leave it hanging because I know what it is and I'm super excited now. Yes, that's a good one. It's a crowd pleaser. That's a super good one.
No, it's a big one.
Yeah.
I've been watching. There's a gazillion YouTube.
Yes.
Gazillion. When I did Isabel Gowdy, there was like 2 YouTube videos about her, and that was all I could find.
Yeah.
And there's a gazillion about this.
Oh my God. And I can't wait to tell you my own story that has to do with Peggy, who do you remember this one?
No, I don't remember. I can't wait to hear.
Literally hilarious. Yes, it's
Peggy's
hilarious.
A hoot. We love her.
Peggy is a friend of mine. I hope she listens. I think she does. She loves ghosts, and she was my protector on my 2017 tour. I was terrified of everything, and she was like, couldn't wait to see all the ghosts, and I was so freaked out. She walked me to my room at night. She like got me from my room every morning. Like I was just walking around terrified the whole time. And she was like my little protector lady. It was we were such a funny pair. So I love me some Peggy, but the story about her and what you're going to talk about is so funny. It cracks me up so hard.
I can't wait to hear it.
So funny.
That'll be perfect.
Oh my God. I even have the picture to go with it. So funny.
So we're going to leave you hanging.
Yeah, we are.
If you'd like to join in some of the fairy fun and antics, come and find us on Instagram. We're called One Scot One Not over there as well. And if you have a friend that's partial to the fae, or maybe they're even a secret selkie, then please share this podcast with them.
For more information on our fantasy-themed notebooks and journals, uncut and unedited YouTube videos, and to share with us your own scary or folklore-related stories, and also for more information on our Celtic Collective art program, you can find all that information and more over at our website, onescotonenot.com.